I'm an old soul. I spent so much time in my younger years surrounded by uncles, aunts, and grandparents. I tell people I was supposed to be born in the 40s or 50s. But even when I was a kid, we had to get up to change the channel on the TV. And we didn't know who was calling us when the phone rang. People even showed up to your house unexpectedly. Well, because they were in the neighborhood. Wherever you grew up, you experienced a childhood that can never be duplicated. Good times, bad times, we struggled, we laughed, we ate, and we cried. I want to go back and hear your story. They say you can't live in the past, but we can hang out there for a while. What's up, everybody? Welcome in the No Remote Show. I'm Genovese. Today, I got a good one, close friend. We've been through a few battles together, some crazy times, but now we're dads, and it's pretty funny. I got my boy Tommy Feight on the show. What's up, Tommy?
What's up, Genovese? How you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. People out there probably seen you in the Shahs of Sunset. You got a dope podcast, Till the Dirt, with your wife. I'm loving that. And beside that, what else has been going on?
Fuck, bro. I got a lot going on. We have a vodka company, which is EP7. It's excellent. So if you want to get drunk and you want to, get naked and run around the town square, it's definitely it's fuck juice. So I would highly recommend it. That being said, I also have a nonprofit, Fight Club, where I give books and school supplies to classrooms that otherwise wouldn't have access to them. And, there's a big development coming down the pike that should be announced in the next couple of weeks, but I'm not allowed to speak on it yet.
Gotcha.
But life is good, man. It's all a dream. I got my little guy, and he's healthy, he's happy. So is my wife. So
That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
I love that book stuff, what you do for the kids. For all who don't know, people bring books they're not using, whatever, and send them to you, and you distribute them to kids and schools or whoever that need them, correct?
Yeah, and I have an Amazon wish list. Fortunately, between our dirties, which is what we call our listeners to our podcast, and past Shahs listeners, my followers on social, I have an Amazon wish list, and normally I just will request books. People will buy them from my wish list, send them to me, and then I'll send them to schools. My wife had a very difficult pregnancy, and the night that she was giving birth to my son was actually like the worst night of my life, dude. She, it was a real hit or miss. And I'm not a real religious guy, but I definitely I consider myself a little bit more spiritual. And I made promises to the universe that night that if everything turned out okay, that I would do something. I would figure out a way to try and repay. And COVID happened right after that, and her uncle gave me a shit ton of books, and I had a lot of them, and I couldn't give them to the kids' hospital or any of that other thing because of COVID. So I basically just made, a post. Does anybody want books? And, a spark became a flame, which turned into a fire. And then it was like, I think this is the thing. So, it's been good, man. I'm a big advocate for reading. I can't say that I'm not saying I'm a monumental success, but I am saying that any success I have in life is a big part of that is because I read a lot.
Love that, man. I love what you do. And, at this point in life, if you can give back, you probably get a better feeling giving than receiving. I know how that goes, especially when you're helping kids and your kid sees what you're doing. That's the most important thing. So let's go back in time. Like, what is teenage Tommy doing? 13, 14, jumping into high school. What's going on in Queens?
Teenage Tommy's a bad motherfucker, bro. I got in a lot of trouble. My mom died when I was 13. My pops was never in the picture. And, I wanted to move with my grandmother, and they were just on a different wavelength than me. I was real angry for just at the world for a minute. You know what I mean? I just felt like I got dealt a real shitty hand. And, everybody gets dealt bad cards, dude. It just depends on what time in life they come. Mine came early. But like I said, I got a healthy kid now. I got a beautiful wife who's also healthy. I've made that back in spades, but there was a point in my life where I was angry. I was getting in trouble a lot. Doing a lot of bad things, not necessarily evil things. You know what I mean? But I was just getting in a lot of trouble from pretty much 13 through my early 20s. And then once I left New York, I kind of left a lot of that shit behind me, and I tried to go in a different direction. And so far, so good.
Yeah, and growing up in the era that we did, 80s, 90s didn't help either. There's a lot of freedom and a lot of things that weren't documented. So we grew up in a tough time, and I can relate to you as well. Had a lot of anger myself growing up, no dad around, wondering why there's no one here to protect me, and so you grow up with that anger, and like you said, you get older and you have to forgive, you have to be a better person. We went through a lot of stuff young, but yeah, the time that we grew up in was a tough time too. So, but
Oh, I
we
think
made
that's
it,
a
Yeah.
that's a big element to it. You know what I mean? Like you and I, it's funny. You and I were real good at baseball, right? When we were younger, we were
Yep.
athletes to a certain. But not having that dad in the picture really mucked things up for me as I got older, because no one kept me on that straight and narrow, right? You know what I mean? No one let me see the forest through the trees. That yeah, you could maybe go to college, you could maybe do other things from this. And I grew up in a neighborhood where John Gotti lived 5 blocks away from me. The head of the Lucchese crime family was 6 blocks the other way. Joe Messina, the head of the Banana crime family, was 5 blocks the other way. So there were 3 crime bosses living in my neighborhood. We weren't trying to be Michael Jordan and Howard Beach. We were trying to be, John Gotti. That's what's around you. There's a great book called Outliers by Malcolm Caldwell. And he talks about that you are a product of your environment. If you look at people like Bill Gates, Paul Allen, Larry Ellison, all those dudes grew up together. They all they weren't best friends, but they all grew up in the same, within like a 10-mile radius of each other. So it's natural that that they were able to achieve what they were achieved, because they were kind of competing against each other, and at the same time they were friends too. So it just shows that we are, especially you guy like you and me, dude, where you don't have that male role model. We're in the streets, dude. We're looking at the people that got respect, the people that people looked up to in that area, and most of those people around me were doing dirt.
It's true. And how could you, I remember playing baseball. My mother's working all day. I look in the crowd, there's no one there.
No
There's no
one,
one in the stands. So
no one.
where's my motivation? Who's motivating me? My coach who's telling me, "Hey, can you fill the lineup out today?" And it's like, what am I doing?
Or
My
his kid is getting a little bit more, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, and nothing that I wouldn't want for my son. You know what I'm saying? Like his kid, he's playing catch with his kid, or his father, or this kid's father's there, and I'm not throwing out names, whatever. But because they were all good dudes, but like there's a level of resentment and jealousy that you don't even realize you have in that moment. But now from 20,000 feet, and hindsight and years, I could say and look at myself and say, oh, that's what that was. I was pissed that
I
I
was
didn't
pissed.
have any of that. You know what I mean?
That was
And
the anger. That's the anger you grew, and you had to. The streets kind of helped you get that anger out, because you get to hang out, you get to look around, and while other kids were maybe going to better schools, I had friends that fathers put them in better schools that had a better sports program, and I'm going to a high school where if I cut all day, they don't even call home. You know what I mean? So that's where the dad part is missing, and that's why now I think we look back what we went through, and you're like, there's no fucking way my kid is ever going through any of that
no,
shit. You know what
no
I mean?
shot,
So
no
it's
shot.
it's taking that cycle and just throwing it away, and that's over and it's done, and whatever happened. But we have to follow our own path as parents.
And I really think that it's something that I've, single mothers are amazing, dude. They make the world go round. They're powerful, powerful, thoroughbred women that drive a lot. Their forces of nature. That being said, it's not the way it's supposed to be done.
No,
It's not. I think that every boy, every girl, they need a male influence in their life. They need someone that's strong, that could kind of, it's real hard for mom to be the good cop and the bad cop, right? Especially my mom, she worked all day, dude. She busted her ass. She would come home at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and but when I got out of school to like then, I was on my own, so then it all like when she passed, she got sick, she died, and it was real quick. And to me, it was like, why work hard? You know what I mean? Like, why do the things that she did when all you're going to do is get sick and die? So there was a lot of things that I didn't realize in my life that fucked me up. You know what I mean? From a young age. And again, keep going back to the streets. The streets are always welcoming, dude. There's always someone hanging out at the park, dude, that, if you want to, go get into mischief or go be in a bad situation, there was always that. I mean, the good thing is nowadays, you go drive around, you don't see that shit anymore. They're all kids are driven to play dates, and like that association isn't really there like it used to be. Everyone's, it's been said 1,000 times. I was told, come out before the lights come on, right?
That's it.
That's it. You'll go do your thing.
Or you heard your mother screaming for you. You might have heard that. There was no rules. It really wasn't. Nowadays, when I see 3 or 4 kids riding a bike, I'm excited. I'm like, yo, I love these kids. Who's their parent? Who's their parents? I want to meet them. You know what I mean?
For real.
But on the other side of it, it's a good thing in a way, because it's not a good thing where the kids can't have freedom and be their own person. But the stuff we went through was, I don't think the kids today could even handle that.
Oh, no way. And again, like I said, she had no idea. You know what I mean? Like, and again, she died when I was 13.
13.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking a couple of years prior to that. Like, she had no idea. She come home at 7. I was going places, and I was like, the other side of the earth compared to where the fuck she thought I was and what was going on, And then, fast forward after she died, I'm with my grandmother. It's kind of the same thing. Like, it was just a different time. The crack epidemic was everywhere. We had to grow up a lot sooner. And there's an element that I have that I know my son's never going to have as far as street smarts and shit like that. Like, so there's good and there's bad, right? On the seesaw of life, there's definitely good, that it made me grow up quick. It gave me a lot of, like today I could sit and realize I'm wiser, not necessarily smarter, but I'm wiser because of all the things that I went through when I was younger. And I hope my son doesn't have to go through any of that, because we want to protect him. But at the same point in time, I also know that he's going to be a little slow to develop, just like I see a lot of these other kids. You know what I mean? Like they're not, I'm not saying that they're not smarter or, they're not more learned, especially they got these phones, and they're definitely able to, do a lot of things technologically that probably we couldn't at that age or whatever, but they definitely don't have the world knowledge because they're a lot more sheltered than we were growing up.
And the communication skills. A lot of kids now, when you talk to them, they look down or look around. They can't really communicate with you.
For sure.
Because they're not around. We were outside talking to everyone. Parents are slapping us. Get out of here. We had to adapt to everyone. Stores, walking to the store. Kids don't walk to the store. My daughter wouldn't even know where to go. What are you going to get? You know what I mean?
I used to walk to the store to get my mother cigarettes, dude.
My mother, listen, on the episode before, I was telling one of my boy, the guest, and I was like, my kids used to hate coming to my house to see if I was home, because if I wasn't home, my mother would send them to the store.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My mother didn't have a car. My mother was like, I need cigarettes and milk, go. And my friends would be like, back then you couldn't say no.
No way.
So it was just that era. But if you imagine your son, my daughter now, going to their friends and the parent is telling them to go to the store, they wouldn't even know what to do. They wouldn't even know how to even react.
For sure. They think it was a punishment or they did something wrong.
Yeah.
Shit, I remember Christmas, like when this Christmas passed, because we have a big fake tree. It fucking looks like we live in a bank. It's tremendous, but whatever. I remember buying our Christmas tree and carrying that shit home myself. Again, she died when I was 13. I had to be 11, 12, whatever. And I carried that thing home like 4 blocks, set it all up myself. Like, there's just a level of, dependence that we had that, sure, your mother would wish different, but she couldn't do nothing about it. I mean, nobody could do anything about what we had going on, And, there were no cell phones. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
I
could
was
just
I
be,
was telling my daughter that we didn't even know who was calling us. When the
yeah,
phone
for
rang, you might
sure.
be like, "Oh, it's Aunt some," you didn't know. So
Yeah, or you
everything.
might be like, I'm not taking that call because it could be a call we don't want. You know what
Or
I mean?
people used to actually come to your house and knock on the door, not even letting you know that they were coming.
Yeah, like you talk about cutting school and shit. Like I remember, because even before, like, especially when she got, sick. And I look at it now as just a way like I was rebelling or whatever, but I was getting in a lot of trouble, and I would wait, like, because the school would call you, right? It's like 7:30 at night. You know what I mean? And I would do everything I could to get that call so she wouldn't get it. Or if they left a message, get it, like, delete it before she got home. It's just shit that, like, that would never even happen today. Like, I'm on a text thread with the teacher, the teacher's assistant, the fucking the principal of the school, my wife, and like 30 other parents are on a text chain.
Can you
It's
imagine
just,
that?
yeah, bro. That'd be
My
Becky,
mother would
dude.
be like, "I'm not even responding to that."
Yeah,
It's a
it'd be
different. But
crazy,
one
man.
one thing that it taught us, especially having a single mom, is the protector. Because I know you probably the same way. When I was a kid, you were forced into being kind of the man of the house at an early age, so
For sure.
you were protecting even if you didn't know you were. And
Absolutely.
I think now with our kids, and my wife will say, why are you looking at that guy like that, or what why and I'm like, I don't trust no one, and I'm built to be the protector, not just for you but for my kid, for everyone. And I think that's just born in us, not born in us, but as like we said, having a single mom and having no other choice, it's kind of inside us now as we're parents. And
Bro,
uh,
Shahs fans out there know, someone talked crazy on my wife on that show. And I spent a few days in county. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
got it.
not, there's, yeah, you'll have to murder me, dude. You know what I mean? Yeah, but it's something I take with, it's a badge of honor. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Did you have someone that was like kind of mentored you young, or that will kind of help you get through not, getting even in more trouble at when your mom passed?
No. The
Oh,
person that I have mentored, he's still one of my closest friends, and I love the guy like a brother, an uncle, a dad, whatever you want. But he also was in the streets, so he mentored me. But he mentored me in the streets. You
yeah.
know what I mean? And he did like 10 years. He's definitely a different dude now. He's not like, he'll be the first to tell me like we shouldn't have did the things that we did, and lessons learned. But you don't get redos on life. I wish we did. I wish we got do-overs, but we don't. But yeah, I didn't have any, role. And I looked at them like they were squares. If they were like any of the ones that maybe try to do that, do the right thing, I looked at them like, you ain't that, like, you're not the guys that I think are the cool guys. Because like I said, the area and the environment that I grew up in, it was just a different type of mentality. Everybody was in the street, or at least, their fathers, their uncles were too. So it was just an abnormal way of living. But it is what it is. And, I'm here today, so I can't really, people say I have no regrets. Obviously, I do, and there are definitely things I would have changed, but I don't know if I make those changes. It's like the butterfly effect, right? I don't know if those changes that I make, I probably am not sitting here, right? And I don't have the kid that I have. Maybe I don't have the relationship with you, So we could just play the cards that we're dealt, dude.
That's it. That's all you could do. And sometimes, yeah, your life is set up. You obviously, decisions you make will change your life, but sometimes things are set up for that to happen. I mean, there's nothing you could. I mean, I think we were, for us, I think the streets connected us. That was an outlet to not be home, maybe not seeing your mother going through what she's going through, and because you don't really realize things back then of what's going on. Now you look back and go, "Holy shit!" Because I look back at my mom and I say, "How the hell did you do it?" It's hard to do it with two. It's two people. It's hard. What were you? How did you even do it? So it's more. I think you always appreciated, but when you look back as a parent now, you like appreciate it more. And like you said, no woman should have to go through that. You know what I mean? And
No.
it makes you look at fathers a different way that don't do the right thing. So I think I always had that anger, but now it's more of a love for what my mother did.
Yeah, and listen, now also being a dad too, I don't know, I love my mother. She's a saint in my eyes in a lot of ways. But who knows? Maybe she was a real pain in the ass. And maybe maybe when they broke up, she made things difficult for my dad or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't know. I see friends and, I have friends that, they want to be in their kid's life and the mom's making it real hard or whatever. So who knows? All I know is what I can be accountable for. I know that, I can only worry about me, right? And I know that I'm definitely going to be in my kid's life, hell or high water, whatever I have to do, I'll figure it out. But I can't pass judgment. Like I said, I was mad at my dad for a long time. And who knows, man? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. I know that sometimes women could be fucked up. You know what I mean? My wife will fight with me, dude, and she'll say some shit. Where if it was a dude saying that, dude, I would fucking dig a hole in the backyard. You know
Say
what
no
I'm
more.
saying? You know what I mean? So it's like, so who knows, man? All I know is that I love my kid too much. I love my kid too much. I would put up with anything. I eat a bowl of cow shit. Thank you, sir. May I have another? You know what I'm saying? So, I know it had to be tough for my mother, definitely. And I know it's probably tough for every other single mother out there and single dad, dude. It's not the way to do it. You know what I mean?
Nope.
You need the yin and the yang. You need that two parts to, especially today, because today there's so much shit out there that if you don't have, if you can't play a zone defense, right?
That's
then,
good.
If you can't do that, you don't know what these kids are up to in a lot of ways. Because like you said, we were out and about, right? We were out and about. They didn't know what the fuck was going on. But there's today they could be sitting 10 feet away from you and you don't know what they're up to. It's just, it's different, dude. You know what I mean?
They're playing a game, but you don't know who they're talking to, who's behind that screen. It's a whole different.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And they're learning a lot quicker, like you look at porn, right? For you, like, I can remember the first porn mag that we found it. Me, my buddy Keith Fox, Harry Irwin, I can't think. We were walking home from school and there was a porn mag on the floor.
It was like you found gold.
Fucking bro. And we would circulate it back between us. The pages would come back stickier and stickier.
Oh, forget it.
You know what I mean? It was craziness. And it didn't matter who was in it. You know what I mean? It was that's it. This is it. This is like you said, it's like gold. Nowadays, they got, shit at their fingertips that it's like, whoa, bro, it's, so yeah, it's a different world and it's, it's improved in a lot of ways, but it's also, it's also a lot more fucked up in a lot of ways too.
It's true. Speaking of your son, do you put him on to any old school stuff like cartoons and different things? Does he like anything from back in our time, or is it all just?
Well, I regret. I put him on to Transformers, and now I hate Transformers because the Transformers we grew up with were easy to play with, easy to put together. These things you need like a doctorate from MIT to figure out how to fix, dude, and he doesn't shut up about it. Well, I'm a little I've actually been quiet about it because the last, I don't know, couple of weeks, he's I haven't
slowed down a little bit.
Yeah. And when he's when mommy's asking what do you want for your birthday, because the people that come to the party want to know what he wants. I haven't heard, like for a year, I heard about Transformers. Halloween, she had to make him a Star Screen, because you couldn't buy the costume. She had to make it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's like, so but yeah, that was me, But yeah, there's definitely things that I put him on. G.I. Joe, kind of but they don't have toys for it.
Yeah. What about any movies like classics? Have you ventured into that yet?
Yes, but he's still like a little kid. So
6 is tough.
He loves Goonies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he loves cartoons. Yes, we watched Beauty and the Beast for the first time last night. He's kind of into it. So The Lion King is his favorite. That's my favorite. So for sure, but I can't wait till that next step. So like
I
he
know.
could, like I
I put
tried
the
Gremlins and he was scared. He was terrified.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
know what I mean?
I was just gonna say a few years ago, I put on Tom and Jerry, and she was like, Dad, there's a lot of violence in this show, and I was like, really, I didn't realize that Tom and Jerry
Yeah, for
was
sure.
crazy,
Fuck,
like
bro.
it was
That would
nuts.
happen. He's
Yeah.
saying that would happen.
It was, and she was just. I
Absolutely.
was like, you know what? Maybe we'll try in a few years. Like, I just these kids are not used to us watching Tom and Jerry. I used to watch with my grandfather. I'm 6 years old. I thought it was hysterical. Yeah. Now I don't think the kids are just. It was the same thing with Home Alone. She didn't like it because they was beating shit out of them. And she didn't like that. You see what I'm saying? And he's a boy, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? You kind of got to play it by ear and see if it works. Let them maybe the first 15, 20 minutes play, or when it gets a little crazy, and just see how they react, because it's a different time.
100%, 100%. And it's crazy now too. I don't know how it is by you, but by here, it's not just you and your kid, dude. Like I said, we have a text chain. Like if they go into school and they say something crazy, you're getting called into school, bro.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
immediately.
Like, you're going to have a fucking meeting. You know what I mean? And it's like, so it's not just you and the kid anymore. There's an element to everybody is involved in your life, which
everybody.
I don't like.
I mean, like carpool. You're sitting on the carpool. You know every person there. The person who's radio and thing, and this one. It's not like we're us where, you walk to school. You walked into school. That was it. Now
100%.
it's a whole process. Everything's a process now with
100%.
everything. So
100%.
you just have
like
to.
Like you
adapt.
said, my wife is that person. She fucking knows everybody, and I am not. I'm not that guy. So like, that part of it is it's very strange to me. And again, because of that element where we were on television for a while, I don't realize that sometimes people know who I am. You feel me? And it's like it's a different world.
Well, you know what it is? It's like, even though you're a regular guy, to everyone else, you're not. But sometimes it takes a minute to adapt to that. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%.
Speaking of the Mets, let's go to this. What was the best Met game you ever went to? Was there one?
Yeah, there was actually two. One of them was like just with my boys, where it was like the best day ever. When we came back against the Braves, we were down like 8-3 in the ninth. And Piazza, it was great, dude. It was amazing. And the other was when Piazza hit that home run on September.
You were there?
September. Yeah, man, that was amazing. That was amazing, dude.
I'm a Yankee fan, and I had the chills that day.
Yeah,
I mean,
it wasn't about baseball, dude. It was like
Yeah,
it was kind of like, just an element of pride, dude. That was like, yeah, fuck you, bro. And
I also feel like if you weren't there or a New Yorker, it didn't hit you as hard.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Because we felt like you came. It was a different feeling. It was just, I can't even explain it. What that feeling was. But
my wife was fucking. She woke up and like and most of what happened had already happened. You know what I mean? Like, and it was just like, oh, kind of, like she sits there and watches fucking Wendy Williams. Like, oh, wow, this is interesting. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, fucking, I worked down the block. You know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
And that day I wasn't there because we were actually moving to Brooklyn. So I was like helping my guy move shit. And, we're getting phone calls like, yo, dude, we're under attack. You're like, can we go home? You know what I mean? It was, it was an element of craziness there. And I it's funny too. Like I said, I just went back next, to New York. I spoke at the school but I was there the people that kind of looked after me after my mother died and my grandmother wasn't, in the picture, and they had their 50th anniversary, and I went and I gave a speech at their party and went, whatever. It was a great time, whatever. But while we were there, we took the ferry from Rockaway to New York to downtown, which didn't exist when I lived there. So, that was a great experience for the kid. And I took him to like where our old offices were. And like, we were right down the fucking block from where it was, it was like that. There was just a crazy time, man. It was great though too because like people knew who I was. So like there was people like, hey
That's dope.
Tommy, and I'm with my kid, dude. It was great. It was
Great
great. It was
feeling.
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was great.
Just to be back in the old stomping grounds going through that.
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
you,
man.
when you were young, obviously you had traumatic time growing up. Did you see yourself being something like, did you have any vision of what you wanted to be when you were young?
I can't believe you asked that question. That's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to deal with in life is that I never had that. You know what I mean? I was always looking at the next day, not the future. You know what I mean? I didn't have any
I can relate. I
semblance.
was the same way. Baseball, I was baseball, but I was a survivor in my mind. Like I was trying to
100%.
survive and trying to figure it out day to day, what's going to happen, because I think that's the way I lived, you know. And then when baseball ended, it was like, all right, I'm good at music. Let me take this. But like I said, I never looked and said I'm going to college or I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a fireman. I just
Never,
no.
never. I didn't know about goals. I didn't know about, setting goals, how to like knock off little levels of achievement. I didn't know
Bank
anything about
accounts.
that
I didn't
shit.
know how to have. I didn't get a
Nothing.
bank account, and I had to do all myself. I didn't even.
And listen, right out of high school, I went and worked on Wall Street, and we were working at places like Wolf of Wall Street. I was making a lot of money, dude, but I didn't. I knew how to spend it. You know what I mean? Like,
but you
I
didn't
knew
know
how to-
anything else.
Yeah, so I didn't have any of the things that you need, like that. I hope that every night I go over with my son. Every night, that we've been doing that since he's 3. You know what I mean? Since he's been old enough to kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about. But yeah, I definitely didn't have that, and I think that's a question that you ask because you and I have a lot of a life experience that's the same. I don't. So I know that's something that sticks out in your mind in life. Like, yo, man, I didn't have that shit. You know what I
No.
mean? And I know I didn't either. It's definitely it's one of the reasons that I don't think that I've ever reached my full potential. And I think it's probably the same thing about you. Not to say that we're finished products and that we can't, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
I know. I look
there's
at
other people around me that I look at that had the things that we didn't, and it's like, oh shit, I could probably have, done that thing too, but I just didn't have, the people around me. That's why, like, you hear those 1 in a million, like the father wasn't around, mom worked 15 jobs and he still worked. That's that's not how it is for everybody, right?
No.
That's the exception. That's certainly not the rule. And I think that sometimes we think that if they could do it, everybody could do it, but it's just not real.
It's the simple things that I think people take for granted. My wife laughed. She's like, you talk about like that. I said, I didn't have a dishwasher in my house. I didn't have a wash and dry. Mother went to the laundromat. I was like, these things that I have, I know everyone had, but I didn't. I wasn't able to sit at the table and have dinner. It was just me and my mother. She'd make me a plate and say, you want to go watch the Yankees in the living room? Go ahead, sit on the floor. That's just kind of the way it was because there was no structure. So like
100%.
now when you could do it, maybe to other people it doesn't seem that cool, but for me it is. You know what I mean?
100%. Like, it's funny you say that. Like the laundry, I remember Game 6, Mets Astros. That extra inning game that went off forever. Like, that we were in the laundromat. And there was a bar that was like 3 businesses down, and I'm going back and forth from the laundromat to the bar. And like they would let me in the bar. You know what I mean? I was like maybe 8. Yeah, and I'm walking in, watching the game, and I would run back, tell her to score. Eventually, we're done with the laundry. We go watch the rest of the game in the bar. You know what I mean? Like
the funny thing about
that happening today.
The funny thing about that, I sometimes get into stories with maybe my daughter's parents and my daughter baseball might go further, and I start telling stories, and they're looking at me like what is this guy even saying? You know what I mean?
Yes, you are speaking fucking a different language, bro. Like sometimes
totally.
It's like I gotta rein it in. I like whoa.
I might just go to I'll be back. I'm going to the bathroom. I have to refresh. Come back as a civilian. You know what I mean?
Yes, I've said too much.
Yeah, I said too much. They might never ever call. My kid might never play with this kid again.
100%.
It's just the way it is. Who was your guy in music growing up? Like, who did you have one artist that? Well, you had a few.
I had phases. You know what I mean? Like when I was obviously when I was little, you only know what your mother likes, right? That's the music that's in the house. That's the other thing.
Yep.
Like now you got music and whatever you want. You know, back then you had whatever was on the radio or whatever she put an album on. You know,
That's it.
and so there's a lot of Billy Joel when I was younger.
That's my
And then,
guy, bro.
yeah.
My
And then
favorite, honestly, my favorite lyricist, because, you know, he's a lyricist. Billy.
Sure.
Nas and Billy Joel, to me, writing,
yeah.
tough to beat.
And then, you know, I got into a lot of Guns N' Roses and when, you know, in my early teens. And then hip hop came in, and once, you know, once hip hop bit me, dude,
That was it.
I stayed spun. You know, Biggie, like you know, Nas,
of course.
Like yeah, that's.
Was there one album?
That's another problem.
That's
as to
true.
why we grew up the way we did.
That's
you know,
true.
We didn't, like you said, we didn't have the male influence, so I had people around me doing dirt, and I had the music. Everybody in the music was doing dirt, so I felt like I was a superhero in my own life. You know what I mean?
Is there one album that like you probably played more than any album?
I would think 36 Chambers, Ready to Die, and Illmatic were those are like that's my childhood. Dude.
It's crazy because
you know
36 Chambers, when you ask people, and they could be from all cultures and all places, if they like hip hop, 36 Chambers usually is their most played album. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, I think Wu-Tang crossed way more barriers than like if you ask real New Yorkers or like hip hop, like Biggie Smalls is the best that they ever did it. There's not even a close, but he doesn't necessarily cross lines. Like I've lived other places now for a while, right? And you know, obviously West Coast is Pac, and so like Biggie is huge, but East Coast, right? Just like Pac is huge, West Coast, where Wu-Tang crosses like everybody listens to
some
Wu-Tang.
kids in Kansas were knocking Wu-Tang. Yeah. It's a whole different, because my cousins lived upstate and they were like Wu-Tang was everything. You know what I mean? So you're right. It kind of crossed over. Maybe the first hard group that crossed over that to everywhere, every country, everywhere.
Still
you know
to this
what I mean?
day.
Still to this day. Today.
Like if they want to go on a tour, dude, they still do. You know, they definitely brought a lot of white people to the party.
True.
You know what I mean? Like East Coast is different. Like you said, man, crack was everywhere, dude. It wasn't just in the city. You know what I mean? It was everywhere. So like white neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, Spanish, everybody kind of was all in the same melting pot, you know? So there's really no difference. But if you were a white kid in Kansas, listening to Wu-Tang was probably a little abnormal, right? But they were there. Well, you know?
I think the way New York is too, you know, it's different when, you know, I'm down here. You're like, you know, the black people lived a certain area, Spanish people, white people. For us, you can go down a few blocks and you're in a whole nother world.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So it's a different, everything is blended in. You go to the store, they're going to maybe the same store you're going to or something like that, because everything is close knit there.
Yeah, no, it really was a melting pot. And Queens is the most gentrified area. Literally, statistically, it is the most gentrified, most different ethnicities anywhere on the world live in Queens. Fuck New York City. I'm talking just Queens. And it's crazy because when you move out here, they got all different things too, but it's very segregated. You know, like there's a Persian community. There is a Mexican community. There is a black community. They don't, you don't really live amongst like it is back east. It's not the same in a lot of ways.
Well, it only helped us growing up because by the time we got in the real world, we could adapt to anyone. So
for sure,
you know,
and
it
never meant nothing. You know what I mean? Like I'm married to a Persian broad, but she could just be easily Filipino. You know what I mean? Like when I'm at the parties and there's a bunch of Persian people, I can give two shits. You know what I mean?
You just judge the person. It's if I like you, I like you. All the other shit, I don't really even care.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not someone I never met before. Like, you know what I mean? Like I ran through every person. I've met every person. I've done business with or hung out with all types of people. So what are you gonna? I'll give
you an example. She's got another friend in the group or like in her Persian group, whatever. And again, I'm not going to point out names, but whatever. He's white, married in, and he's tried to like he has immersed himself in the customs. You know what I mean? Like Nowruz, which is Persian New Year. Like he does. I don't give a shit, dude, because it don't mean nothing to me. I married her, and she happens to be Persian. She could be Chinese. She could be black. She could be fucking Puerto Rican. I'm still not doing the thing. You know what I mean? What she is doesn't matter to me. I love her, and obviously, if my wife wants to do Persian customs and shit like that for my little guy, I could care less. Go ahead, knock yourself out. But it's like, I don't need that. That's not why I'm here. You know what I mean? It makes no difference to me. I care about her, not necessarily about where she comes from.
That's real. Gotta respect that. All right, last few things. All right, 3 dinner guests.
My mother, obviously, I would definitely like to sit down with her, get an idea of, what she thinks about life. My wife's father, who I spent a lot of time with before he passed, and he had lost a little something on his fastball when I met him, but you could tell how respected and revered he was throughout the area. Like, he owned a couple of parking lots, and I remember one night I took him to those old lots, and there were dudes crying, bro. Like, oh my God, I thought we haven't seen him. It was just, so I would like to sit down with him when he was in his sweet spot. You know what I mean? Not necessarily the end.
The prime.
Yeah. I'd like to get a little prime him. Shit, I'd like to even get a little prime mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would like to see her as she would be now as a grandmother and age with wisdom, but I would also like to see, 10 years before I was in the picture, And the third, it'd be tough, man. I think Biggie, man. I love the way he spoke to me. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like he spoke to me, and what I was feeling, especially at that time. And even now, there's shit that I'll turn on and I'll realize that dude was 24, bro, when he died, and like the knowledge that he had. I would love to see where that went. You know what I mean?
Also, I think, I met Big, and I sat and spoke with him, and I saw how he was. No, not for a long time, but a few times. And we spoke for a few minutes, and he was very comforting, a comforting person. Like, you hear his rhymes and you see he was a big dude, but he was like a teddy bear. And I think if he was at the table with your father-in-law and your mom, they would probably love him.
Yeah. We'd have
what I mean?
100%. It'd be a real entertaining dinner, for sure.
Yes.
For sure.
All right. Last thing is one word. I'm going to say a few things. Just drop one word behind it.
Okay.
The Mets.
My whole life, they're the backbone of my life, like my existence. It's my mom. Like, that's why I'm a Met fan. You know what I mean? Like, people, I grew up in the 80s, right? So people like, oh, you're a front runner, right? Because the Mets were good. It's like, nah. I was a Met fan from my mother. I had no other choice. And she was a Met fan through all the dog shit. She dated a few different players. So it's the thing that links me to her still. You feel me? Like, it's still the thing I got.
That's deep, bro. I never knew that. I get it. Now I could see why the Mets are not only a sports team, it's part of you.
Yes. Very much so. Very much so.
All right, Queens.
Who I am, man. You know what I mean? Like, I trust me, I've been a lot of places on earth, dude. And I sound different than most people wherever I'm at. And they'll always ask where I'm from. And my answer is always Queens. It's never New York. It's always Queens.
It's Queens.
That's who I'm from, and that's where I'm from.
L.A.
Second home. It's funny. I still float around here like I'm in New York. Like, I don't read LA papers. I don't know what's going on in the fucking news. I have no idea what's going on in my general community. Like, it took us being evacuated for me to find out about the fires. But that being said, my son's born here, right?
Yeah.
It's
forever part of you, regardless.
Yeah. So if this is like, if he came home with a Dodger hat on, I'm not knocking it off his head, because that's where you're from,
Yeah.
So it's definitely a second home. I love The weather, I don't necessarily love the people. I think, and you lived out here, bro.
Yeah.
You get a lot of I love you, and it's like, yo, man, can you give me a ride to the airport? It's like, I don't know if I can do that.
There's
I
a
do
lot of
love
masks.
you.
There's a lot of masks on in terms. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a
Yes,
different world.
yes, yes.
All right. One word. Your wife.
The creator, dude. You know what I mean? Like, there's bad days that we have for sure, and but even on those bad days, I look at my little guy, and it wasn't easy. You know what I mean? Like, it was easily one of the most difficult things that she's had to do, or that anyone would have had to do, and uh, it definitely took life out of her to have him, and I'll just always be indebted to her. I'll always be grateful for her. So she's before him in a lot of ways because she made him happen.
That's deep. Your son.
Oh, that's my reason for being.
Reason.
Yeah, man. He's
That's a great one. Reason. It's almost like all you have to say.
Yeah, he's my, like I tell people all the time, I never wanted a kid. Never. Like, I was anti. And I'm not saying that everybody should have one, because unfortunately you don't find out if it's for you until you have one. But for me, like, I floated all through life not, never wanting him or wanting that. And now I don't know how I would ever survive without it. So
listen, I can relate. I can relate. Having a kid. I lost my mom, and like, I always think, if I didn't have a kid, what would I have been doing? Would I have went another way, or I would, because I was so close to her, and it was a tragic thing. So I always say, the kid, man, it's like, once you realize what being a parent is, you can't explain it to someone who hasn't went through it. It's impossible.
No. And again, I can't. It's not for everyone. You know what I mean? It's not like, like the people are walking around are aimless or think that I don't want kids. I'm not saying that you should have one, because it might not be for you. There are shitty dads, there are shitty moms, but if it is, you just never know, man. And if it, like, that's why Jamie, I know that would have been the thing. I know him. You know what I mean? And that would have been
his heart was gold. He's a golden heart. And he probably would have been.
That would have been the thing, dude. You know what I mean? Like, because I couldn't do it. There's nights that I can't sleep because I know that I wasn't a good enough friend to him. You know what I mean? Like, I watched the parade go by in a lot of ways without doing anything about it. And that's not to say I could have saved him. It's just to say I could have tried harder. But I know that would have done it. Like that, obviously it would have had to been with the right woman, which,
of course.
I don't know if that was. Like, he wasn't running around with that type at that time. You know what I'm saying?
True.
But if that would have happened for him, I think that could have been the thing to make him, snap out and just go in a better direction. Because
I think so too. I also resonate with you on that. I think from time to time the same thing. You think, oh yeah, I try to help, but what could I have done? The coulda, woulda, shoulda thing. It sucks to have that. I think of the same thing with my mother. But when someone's close to you, I think those are just normal feelings, because you know the person, you just feel like they got cheated. You know what I mean?
100%.
In terms of life.
100%.
Last one, the most important, Tommy Feight.
And strong.
I like that.
Strong. I haven't figured it all out. I'm doing better, right? I'm doing my best, and every day in every way, I'm getting better and better, dude. And that's all that we could do, is try to just keep getting better in all facets of life. I'm trying to be a better husband. I'm trying to be a better friend. I'm trying to be a better dad every day, all the time. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be perfect, and I don't think anyone ever will be. But we could, all we could do is just try to do our best for the people that are in our world and the people that we care about.
Bro, that's it. Getting better. You're never too old to get better. That's the beauty.
Yes.
It really is. No matter how old you are, especially in this day and time, you can do anything. You can start a business at 70. You can, there's no limits to it. But for all the stuff we went through, I think we're blessed that we got greater later. You know what I mean?
Yes. And, we didn't get in that car that night, that, you know what I mean? Or we didn't take that pill, or we didn't, you know what I mean? Like there's many things in life where it's like, oh, if I did that, maybe I could have been here. And we always think of all the grand things that means, right? But there were also many times where I could have made a left turn and things didn't go right after that. And I didn't. So I'm grateful for that too, So, you know what I mean? I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at. I'm very fortunate to have people like you in my life. I'm grateful for the things that we've been through, and I'm grateful that at the end of the day we could sit here and we could kick back and we can have these conversations about yesteryear.
Hey, listen, 15 years ago when we were in LA hanging out and chilling, I don't think any of us could have scripted how our lives are now. So
Hell
it's a
fucking no, bro. Hell no.
hell no.
Hell no.
So
Hell
that's
no.
a blessing in its own right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Brother, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on, and we'll definitely jump back in again.
Anytime, bro. I'll be happy to sit down and shoot the shit with you.
Always love.
Always, kid.
They say you can't live in the past, but we can hang out there for a while.